Welcome back to Programming with Qt Widgets. In today's episode, we'll talk about a bunch of miscellaneous things. We'll talk about how to disambiguate two strings. We'll talk about two translations. We'll talk about how you translate dates and times and numbers and a few more things. So stay tuned for this episode from the Department of MISC. Wouldn't it be fantastic if a word meant exactly one thing in your language? Let me give you an example. In English, what does the word exit mean? It means that door that you go through to exit something, but it also means to actually go through that door or to leave an application. So when the person translating your application see the word exit, it might not be obvious to them whether it's one or the other. For that matter, for that reason, it's possible to how about we get an ad right now?
Why is this piece of so slow? Do your boss tell you that all the time? Well, there's two solutions to that problem. Either find yourself a new boss or solve those problems with your application being slow. I cannot help you with the new boss, but I can help you with it being too slow. Million Wolf of KDAB has created a tool called Hotspot.
Disambiguate the strings, meaning that you can tell that this string here is different from this string. So even if the translator needs to translate exit twice, it's actually two different translations. Because when you have a translation in your user interface, you might have the same string multiple times in the same dialogue. And Qt, more specific linguist, will only ask you to translate it once. And if you have it in different dialogues, in different context, so to speak, then it will suggest the translation from one in the other. But if you have the same string, meaning two different things, you need a way to tell Qt, hey, this string here actually is different from the exact same string down there. One means to leave, the other means the door. And that is what disambiguation is all about. You can see it here. Here I have two different names. And here it tells that it's recipient. The translator will see this string down here. But sometimes you only have one. Maybe you just have it saying exit and the translator wouldn't know whether it's one or the other that you're referring to and might not know your application well enough to know what it is. So when you have especially short strings, what's useful is to give your translator a hint about what to translate. And you can do that either with the why do I get myself in this situation all the time? The disambiguation string down here, it could be anything. It could be, hey, this is the name of the recipient. That would be a complete sentence for the translator that they would know. And it would also be that this thingy. But you can also do it with a comment that you put on top of your translation. So in this setup here, it says this name refers to a host name. And there you have it. The translator will see both this string here and this string down there. Before I continue with my slides, I would like to just show you how this works in Qt Designer. That's the disambiguation and the comment to the translator. Because you might not even have realized that you actually have a small arrow inside of Qt Designer for that thing. So I just dragged in here a radio button, just a random control widget, whatever you want to call them. And over here in the sidebar in the property edges here it says radio button. I can go over here and call it a Jesper because that's what you want your radio buttons to be called, right? But notice that small arrow here. That is actually the thing. First of all, you can tell that this shouldn't be translated, then there will not be anything extracted into your linguist files, or you can specify a disambiguation or a comment to the translator. It is somewhat weird that you need to press Ctrl Q to afslut, because there's no Q in the word afslut in Danish. So if you want a truly translated application to Danish, then it should be Control, I don't know. I think it would be weird to not have Control Q because we're so close to English in all we do in Denmark. But if you're in a language that is far away from English, then you might even want to translate your shortcuts. And you can do that in the old way. We would be writing Qt : CTRL plus Qt : key_L for Control L. But these days, put it into a TR and give it, this is actually specifying a comment to the translator, but it is done via the disambiguation piece here. So it's really disambiguation, but it's just a comment to the translator that, hey, this Control plus L is about the load action. And for that, you need the Q key sequence. Some shortcuts, while we are on it, are actually system-wide shortcuts. So you have the dimension of different languages, and on your desktop system, Quit might be Control whatever, completely different from Q. I don't know. But then you, in addition to that, have Windows, Linux, and Macintosh, where there might be difference in what the shortcuts are. So for that purpose, Qt have inside of this Q key sequence a number of standard shortcuts that then will be bound from the system. You as a developer cannot change it. You can go to your desktop, at least in Linux, and change it. But you as a developer and you as a user cannot change it within this one application. Languages are different in different ways, and there are some subtle differences that sometimes can blow your mind. Let me just give you one example. If I want to write 1213, weird number, and I want to make it obvious to the user that the first one, the 1000, is 1,000, how would I separate those thousands? Well, obviously you are a C++ developer, so you do with the pling at the top. But if you are showing it to your users, would you use a comma or a period? Don't answer me, because the question begs the answer, it depends. Because in some locales, you do it with a comma, in other with a period. And there's a lot of differences like this. What does 7/11 mean? Is that November the 7th, or is it July the 11th? That is all controlled by QLocale, where you can ask it to format or parse a number of different things. There are 4 locales that you need to know about. The first one is the system locale. That is, your desktop system already has some set up. Your desktop system might be showing in German, and it might be set up for the Swiss version of German, and that's what the locale system will get you then. That you can also get to a locale by default constructing an instance of that. And if you do that, then you'll either get the system or the one that you have set with set default. I can't come up with a good example for when you would want to call set default, but that's just be aware of that. There is this difference between a default constructed and the one that you get from system. Then there is a locale that is called C. And well, actually, let me just go to the next slide here to see what C is, because it's in the documentation for Qt, and I found that to be interesting here. The C locale is based on EN/US. That's English as they speak it in US, but with various quirks of its own, such as simplified number formatting and its own date formatting. It implies the POSIX standard that describe the behavior of standard library functions of the C programming language, which is why it's called C. And one of the things that is specific about this locale is how it sorts text. So it'll sort A to Z or A to C, the ASCII letters there, in lowercase first, and then A to C, the uppercase after that, which might not be very intuitive if you have a list view of people and some of them is spelled with lowercase because you made a mistake, and now they are all at the top, those with lowercase, and all at the bottom, those with uppercase. So that's a C locale. So that's three. We have the system locale, we have locale with default constructed, we have the C locale, and finally you can specify a locale yourself if you want to. And that might come from that you have some way in your application to specify a language or a locale. As an example, in Denmark, we are very much oriented towards English. My kids that are 10 years old speak almost better English than I do because, well, YouTube and whatnot all day long. She would very much not appreciate if her desktop was running in Danish, but she might appreciate that one specific, very niche-oriented application that had a lot of vocabulary that you wouldn't find on YouTube usually, that one was in Danish. After all, it is her native tongue. So if you have such an application, you might want to make it possible for people to run your application in a different language than what the desktop system overall was doing. And in that situation, you might want to create or set up a locale specific for this. Let me show you an example that highlights what I've been talking about in the land of locales. I have a main here that print out, just calls this print method here, for a number of different locales. So it starts with German, then English as they speak it in US, English as they speak it in United Kingdom, Japanese, my system, and finally C. And for each of those, it prints out something very simple here. So first of all, one thing we didn't talk about is that, well, we did talk about that the C locale sorts things with lowercase first and then uppercase. I mean, all lowercase first and then all the uppercase. But how about other letters in here and how are they sorted? And for that, we need a QLocale, which is a method or a ordering thingy. It takes the locale here as a parameter and you call sort with it, and this one implements the operator less than that is different from Q strings default operator less than. Now, I print out a bunch of things here. QDebug, no quote, that's just to avoid that everything has string marks around them. And then the name from the locale, the territory, that used to be country. Documentation say that it's gonna be that. The point is that it's not country, could be something more smaller than country. ToString, let's try and format this number here. ToString, current date time. How about the current date? And day name with short format. So I want to print out mon for Monday, or there's also a narrow format where it's just M. What does that look like? And then the letters being sorted. And I do that for each of those. So let's try and run it and just take up the complete space here. So in German, DE_DE. So I only specified, maybe I should see a bit of that up here too again. I only specified that I want the German, not the German as they speak in Germany, but then that is by default. It needs to be one of the specific one. There's also DE_SW for the German they speak in Switzerland, and so on. The territory is Germany, and here you can see the number that I printed out has period as the separator. This is what right now looks like in date and time and date here. And the short version is MO period for Montag, I believe. And then the list AABB and so on. And let's start with the list. You can see if I scroll down, they're all sorted the same way more or less, except down here in the C locale where all the letters are first, then in capital, then the lowercase, and then the special characters come here later on. Let's see what else interesting we can find. So just here is the United States and Britain. What is the difference between those? Well, observe that there's in Germany, they have a comma as a separator between wholes and less than a whole, and period for 1,000 separators. In US, it's the other way around. So that makes for interesting salary discussions if you write that and you get it wrong. Yes, you can have $12 a year in salary. Oh, wait. Okay, Germany and US and Great Britain. Of course, the name here is different. English as they speak in US and in Great Britain. The territory is United Kingdom and United States up there. They formatted the same thing, but here's actually a difference that's interesting. So in UK, they call what we have right now, and you can see I have short sleeve shirts on, which means that it's summer now. It's August 22nd. You can see that even without me showing my arm. August 22nd, that's still summertime, as we call it in Europe. So Central European summertime. That's how they pronounce this time this time zone that I'm in. While in US, they will call it GMT +2. They are both exactly the same. They have this PM, while we have in UK, they have a 24 hours set up. So there's differences there. I am especially fascinated about the Japanese one because it just blows my mind how things can be different in different ways. So yes, this one must mean Monday. So 2024, that's likely the year. 8, that's the month. So rather than saying that it's August, they write the letter 8, or is that one of these here that also tells me that it's August? 22nd, that's the day. And in here, in the middle of the date specification here, it says Monday. If you're from Japan, please forgive me if I got it all wrong. I'm just trying to do a bit of reverse engineering on your language. But it just tells you how difficult internationalization can be. And remember the previous episode where I told you not to concatenate strings. Imagine that you believe that the whole world had a format that smelled something like this up here, and now all of a sudden the day is put somewhere in the middle. That would be completely difficult or impossible to do if you just concatenated strings. And finally, let's go down here and see the system. This says EN/US. That's because that I prefer my desktop to speak English to me. But you can also notice that my separator here is a period. And if I go up and find EN/US up here, there it was a comma. That's because that my desktop system, I've configured it to more than just be the default US setup. I went in and said, well, I would like my formatting of numbers to be Danish. And that's why I see this. So this name here is not the whole story. It can be configured by the desktop system in more details than that. But in any case, what you see here is that you have these different methods up here to take your local and get a string that feels right for whoever is using your system with a specific language. I could imagine, I never tried, that it would be super annoying to use a system that spoke, Japanese to you, and all of a sudden there was an English string that somebody had forgot to translate. So how do you avoid forgetting to translate strings? Well, first of all, use Qt Designer as much as possible, as I've told you many times already by now, because that will work out of the box with Qt Designer. But if you need to do something in C++, do remember to put tr or one of the other tr functions around your strings. And how do you avoid forgetting to put those around? Well, that is easy. You simply take the constructor in Qt that converts implicit from a const char pointer to a QString. There is such a constructor. That's why you can write QLabel parenthesis open quote hello without putting QLabel parenthesis open QString parenthesis open quote hello, because there is this implicit conversion from a char pointer to a QString. But you can disable that one, and you disable that one using a macro that you compile your application with. So if you set this one here, Qt no cast to ASCII, then it will not allow you to go from a QString to a char pointer. And if you set this one, Qt no cast from ASCII, then it will disable that particular implicit constructor. Well, it will make it explicit, I think. No, it will not. It will compile it entirely out of your application and give you an error if you try to create a QLabel without specifying a QString, but just giving you a char pointer. And how do you do that? Well, if you're using QMake, then you put these two lines in. If you're using CMake, then you add these two lines here, which I unfortunately cannot cut and paste. So I'll have to put you on hold while I type that into my CMake and compile it, because I want to show you what happens in code if you forget them. So pause. On pause, I have now added the defines to my CMake, and I added this include Q core application up here because I need that in a second. But what you see here is that it says calling a private constructor of class QString, blah, 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 blah. And that is because I did want a QString here, but I'm providing it a char pointer. The solution to that is to add tr around it, as you can see here. And then it's just complaining that it doesn't know about tr because I'm in main. Tr requires that I'm in the scope of a Q object, which I'm not here. So the solution, and I'll talk more about that in the next episode. The solution is, and let's just do it here, to say Q core application : translate. I need a scope. Let's call that main. And then I need to close this thing again. That was so close to working. Anyway, you hopefully saw a pretty cool trick there with block editing. Let me suggest that you go and watch that episode from Qt Widgets and more, where I talk much more about block editing in Qt Creator. It's a really awesome facility. But you can see now, no more compilation problems there, but I still have all of these up there. And do I want to have A translated and B and so on? Likely not, because that's not what I want here. So what I can do is I can go back to my slide and find this Qt literal string literals. Using namespace Qt literals : string literals. Good. Because now I can say that, hey, this is a Unicode string, and _s makes it into a string literal from Qt. And let's just, do I want to do that as many times? There we are, macros at your disposal. I hope that did it. It did. And now it will compile, because I got all my... It almost compiled. I should have not listened to ChatGPT string literals, or to GitHub Copilot. Now it compiled. Can I get a hooray? Thank you very much. So those strings that I do not want explicit, do not want to be translated, I can wrap them in a QString literal like this. If this looks too much magic, I could do it like QString literal. It's exactly the same thing that I have here. And for those where I just forgot, well, I'll add TR or QApplication translate, whichever that I need. I'll talk more about those different in the next episode. That's it for this episode. We learned about how to disambiguate our strings. We learned about how to translate our shortcuts, about the QLocale class. And I urge you to go and look at the QLocale class because it has a lot of things that I didn't even touch on in here, like how do you format the size of a file like 25 MB for megabytes. That is also in your QLocale. And we saw those two very nifty macros. If nothing else, please do add them to your application right away. Yes, I know it is going to be tiresome spending the whole weekend on adding U and then _S for those that you don't want and TR around those that you do want. But it will ensure that all your strings are, all those strings that need to, are translated. I'm Jesper Petersen from KDAB. I wish you well. Until we see you next time, have a great time.